What's up everybody, welcome back to the Minute channel. Today we're gonna be reviewing Persona 4 Golden. Now this is my official review of the PC version, Steam version that came out not long ago, about a few months ago. Now it took me some time to play this game because I was in absolutely no rush whatsoever to finish this game. I played this game plenty of times, but I did wanted to play it and give my impressions about it and everything. So now that I finished the game to its full capacity on the PC, I want to talk about my impressions with the game as well as how I feel about the entirety of the game. We'll see, this is more of an analysis of the game than a review itself. I think that while I am trying to analyze the game, I'm also trying to give you a formal review on this and everything. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So what do I feel about Persona 4 Golden, the PC version? So we're gonna go ahead and start with the story like always. So this is an interesting setting, which is something different from the previous Persona game. This is actually one of the things that I like the most about this game, is the fact that you, Narukami, the main character, who is also a pawn on your you as the main character, he moves into the little town of Inaba. He is brand new student, and the very first day where you move, in the first few days, turns out that there is a series of murders. That not only one person died, but then a few days after that, a second person is murdered as well. So it looks like there is a mystery murder case involved in here, and you somehow, through experiences and through friends, you somehow end up getting involved in all of this. This is an interesting plot. Again, I don't think that anybody, I don't know, when I was playing Persona 3 and I heard that Persona 4 was going to be taken in a small little town, I really didn't think, I didn't know how this was going to work out for me, because Persona 1, 2, and 3 happen in bigger cities. Well, especially Persona 1 and 2, they do have quite a bit of a map here, so I was very interested to see how this was going to take place in the place of Inaba and everything. And the story of a small town with a murder mystery seems like something that has been overdone to death, not only by other anime or anything like that, but also by plenty of media when it comes to things like Scooby-Doo or even all of these murder shows. This is typically what happens. This is a small little town and some kind of murder happens. This is a really typical setting, but what Alice manages to do with this setting and with the story itself is pretty interesting and frankly pretty impressive in a lot of different ways. Again, as the series of mysteries start to unravel themselves and starts to move along with the story, I do like how every time that you go and rescue a new character, as many characters get kidnapped, and you're trying to kind of find out what's going on, who is behind it and everything, the more you get involved with the story, the more interested you're starting to get as far as what's going on and everything. And there's a peak point in the game where you actually get kind of like every time that you feel like you're closer to finding out the truth, the game just kind of pulls you and say, nope, this is not what's going to happen. And honestly, the first few times that I was that this happened, I was like, okay, I see that, okay, you pull a fast one on me. But the game starts to overuse that. It almost feels like it's being done too much. There's a point in the game when there's a second and third time where this kind of was pulled. I was like, okay, this is getting kind of stupid. Like you think that you got the bad guy, you think that we caught it, and the first time I was like, okay. The second time I was like, oh, okay. Well, the third time I was like, man, you gotta stop doing that. This is one of the things that actually quite despised in this game, and this is something that is pretty interesting because as a long time of this fan of the series, I'm used to this kind of plot twist and everything happening where whoever you thought it was the bad guy isn't actually the people behind the scenes. And sure, that happens in here, but it happens in here to a point that is almost to a fault. It does feel like it doesn't feel natural anymore. It doesn't feel like a natural progression of the story. It does feel kind of like almost tacked onto it. Overall, I want to say that the story is excellent. It does have some interesting pacing issues within the first 2 hours of the game or 3 hours of the game, where the game kind of starting to not only introduce the characters, but it's also trying to introduce the setting, introduce the school, the gameplay mechanics. There's a lot of this game when it comes to and this is an issue that I have with mainly most of the Persona new Persona games, like Persona 3, 4, and 5, where there's a point in the story with the beginning of the game where it's almost really hard for beginners to kind of grasp everything, but it almost to a fault, where it almost kind of hold your hand and kind of teach you every single mechanic that the game has to offer to make sure that the game is being used to its full potential. I feel like at this point I should understand that the gamer or the average person is going to understand the mechanics even if they don't do it to an extent. Unfortunately, this game does suffer from that same pacing issues because again they're trying to introduce and cram so much information from one thing to the next one. Trying to get so much into this that it almost feels like it's too much at that end. And I remember having this game and I was like, man, I really want to have other people to play this, and I let this game a few of my friends borrow the game, and some of them, I think two of them, were actually not even able to get past the first part because they were kind of almost bored. I don't want to say it in like a bad way. It's almost like it's just too long. It takes too long for it to jump into the action or to jump into the actual storyline and everything like that. Again, because the game is just trying to introduce all these mechanics and all this stuff and everything like that, and it does again feels kind of like it's taking too long for you to actually jump into the next part of the story and everything. But I'll say that the story again is pretty good. There's a lot of really good aspects. I feel like this game, they try to do more of a happy-go-lucky kind of theme where there's a lot of happiness, there's a lot of laugh, and there's a lot of that good stuff, comedy. But at the same time, this game can be really dark. At times, it can be even one of the darkest Persona games. There's times where you're kind of like, whoa, that was really dark. It went dark really fast. However, although there is a good mix between the good bad stuff and the really funny stuff, this game doesn't really know how to handle the sad stuff to a point where it feels like it's a disconnect in the way that they're doing it. For example, there's a scene where something bad happens and then the game doesn't even 5 minutes later it's just having fun and hey, let's go ahead and do this fun activity together, and like everybody's just laughing and having fun. I'm like, yo, maybe let the game marinate and kind of let the player feel sad for some time before you jump into the happy stuff again. Because again, I feel like the tone of the game just changes so fast that it doesn't really let you feel sad. It almost feels like a game doesn't want you to feel sad about a lot of this stuff. It just kind of wants you to, okay, well, this was sad, but hey, what about this fun stuff? Sure, it's fine, but the tone really again gets damaged because of this. I do feel like at some point it almost feels like it's too much, and it does feel like a fault to it. Though there's a lot of really funny moments, there's a lot of really moments where I'm like, yeah, I really actually quite enjoy what you're trying to do here. And it does feel like a lot of the good stuff, like a lot of the cutscenes, a lot of the fun moments, like when they go to the beach or when they go to the school trips and everything like that. There's a lot in this game. There's so many good moments that even games like Persona 3 and Persona 5 don't have. This game easily has some of the best school life moments in a lot of the gamings on its own genre, I guess, if you want to call it that way. It does have some of the best moments. It does feel so fun and so happy, and there's a lot of stuff that I'll say the cutscenes in this game and the moments where are really fun. The game definitely knows how to handle pretty well. Overall, I'll say the story is pretty good in this game, but doesn't, again, it's not really something that I'll say the best storyline ever. It does get predictable at time, and the more time you spend with the game, the more predictable it gets over time. It actually falls onto what I'll say a formula, and the formula doesn't really ever change too much from that. In fact, it almost feels like the formula is made to the beginning to the end, and it does feel the same way throughout it. It's almost to the point where you kind of know what you're going through the motions at this point. That does affect into the gameplay. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the gameplay now. So Persona 4 did something pretty interesting, and if you don't know about Persona 4, Persona 4 is a mixture between a JRPG with dungeon crawling aspects as well as a life simulator when you play as a young high schooler, kind of like just living the life as a high schooler, from getting a job, going to school, hanging out with your friends, meeting new friends, doing activities like you can join a team in the school like basketball or football or something like that, to even things like again, to getting a job, to there's just so many activities. You can include in getting a girlfriend in the game as well, which is kind of funny and interesting. Now, on the other hand, this game also again serves as a really good JRPG. There's a lot of dungeons that you go through pretty much in a set schedule, and you have to do certain activities at certain points. Now, this is where the game actually does feel like I almost excels, but at the same time it fails in some aspects. So we're going to break this down in three separate sections. There is the school life, which is what I'm going to talk about first, then the dungeon crawling, and then the third activity, which is what I will call the social aspect of the game. So school life manages in a way where there's a calendar. Every day there is some activities that you can do at specific times, and overall, I feel like the calendar system works really well for this game because it manages the player to keep some kind of organization. That you can do 2 to 3 activities per day, and at some point you're able to unlock the night where you can do an extra activity. So the day goes in different directions, where you have to go to school in the morning, they hang out with your friends, and then at night you can do something else. So the game goes into that certain activity school life system all the time. Again, I do feel like the system and this point in Persona 4 Golden is good because it manages the player, but at the same time it can be restrictive and it can feel almost claustrophobic, where there's certain activities that you want to do at specific times, and it does feel like you don't have enough time for everything. The game really just throws so many different options at you that it can be overwhelming, especially for new people that have never played a Persona game. I can imagine some people getting really overwhelmed with how the characters just have so many things that you can do. For example, in the morning you go to school, and then afterwards even in school you get things like you can eat lunch with your friends, you can answer questions for students, and then afterwards you get to join again. You can get to join 2 different clubs. You can join the one of the sports club, but you can also join another extracurricular activity, which is kind of like the music team or the theater team or all this other stuff that you can do as well. Besides doing that, again, you can go do things like fishing, getting a job, reading, doing other kind of activities with your friends. There's all these different actions that you can do, and every single action will take time as your day progresses. Overall, I feel like the calendar works well, but I do feel like at this point in Persona 4 Golden, it does feel like it's missing something, but at the same time it feels like there is almost too much of this stuff to do, where you can sometimes miss something important, whether it's on the story or in other activities that you might have done before. So I want to move into the social aspect of the game before I talk about the gameplay of the dungeon crawling for this particular reason. So besides doing all these activities, a lot of these activities actually increases what I will call your social points. I don't know exactly what it's called, but that's what I call it. This is social stats that you get. Things like being smart or being charismatic or being courageous. All these different activities that you do, whether it's reading books, going to the club, all of them increases your stats in some kind of way. For example, if you go and hang out with your friends and you end up helping them in some kind of way, you will increase your understanding. If you go and study in the library, you can increase your knowledge. If you go and let's say you work at night at this scary hospital, then you increase your courage. So all of these activities that you continue to do increases different aspects of the social stats. So what is the social stats for? So again, as I mentioned before, this game does have the ability to have everybody's dream, which is living a high school life and dating and making friends and that kind of stuff. So these social stats are required in order for you to develop certain relationships with people, whether it's with this girl that you want to date, or whether it's this friend that you want to hang out with, or whatever activity you want to do. The social stats are kind of almost a must and a requirement for you to actually be able to progress these social links. So the social links in this game are kind of what I will say, they are a little bare bones in this part of Persona 4. I feel like they have evolved really good over time, but the social links in this aspect is for you to make a new link, a new friend with somebody. There are many stories that you can develop over time, depending depending on the choices and your actions with the different people that you hang out with, the different people that you can do activities with, and they'll even text you and message you and tell you, hey, we should go watch a movie, or hey, you want to hang out today, or hey, do you want to go watch a movie or something like that. So the friend that you're trying to befriend will continuously try to make a friendship with you. By the time that you go through all the way to the level 10, which is the highest level, you will unlock new personas and new more things that you can do. Overall, I feel like these social interactions are really fun, and it's part of really the persona experience, because again, it does kind of give you something to do when you're not doing the dungeon crawling, because again, this game does serve as the purpose as a social simulator where you're just experiencing the life as a high schooler, and it can be really fun. However, that being said, there's almost no purpose of you to doing the social links. As somebody that has played these games a few times, I do feel like the social links are almost so bare bones as far as like what they're required for. By the time that you get to level 10 and you develop this relationship, sometimes you don't even get a chance to make the personas that you unlocked. Sometimes the personas that you unlocked aren't even personas that you want, and sometimes the stories that you experience are not very good. Unfortunately, a lot of these storylines that you get to do aren't super fun. Some of them can be really, really interesting. In fact, some of them are super emotional, and some of them are really deep. There's a lot of talk. For example, there's this old lady who talks about, her life and how she experiences life, and not only that, but also death, and like a lot of really strong themes. And there are some that, for example, there's this girl that plays for the music, and when you talk to her, or the music club, I'm sorry, when you talk to her, she deals with things like depression, and she doesn't have a lot of confidence, and there's all these different aspects that you can hang out. Every single individual that you hang out does have some really interesting aspects, and does their stories somehow do feel really relatable. To a lot of them made me feel like, yeah, there's so much to learn from this one character. And in fact, a lot of these characters aren't even main characters, and some of these social links aren't even things, people that you just are introduced to the story. Sometimes when you're exploring the school, or when you're exploring the city, you end up meeting these people throughout in circumstances. For example, there are some of these social links that you meet while working. There are some of these social links that you meet while doing club activities. All of these things are really interesting, and it feels really natural. However, some of them are also really hard to find. Unless you do certain stuff, there are some social links that you never actually meet. There are some social links that you almost missed if you don't do the right thing at the right time. And I feel like at this time, it just feels like they could have done a little bit more to kind of push you into doing these activities, so you can actually know that the social links are actually active. In fact, I know so many people I know people that from the channel that were like, oh, I never did their social link, or I didn't even know how to access that social link. It does happen quite often. I've seen some people tell me about that. So moving into the actual meat of the gameplay, moving into the JRPG dungeon crawling thing that you're looking into. So besides this, as I mentioned before in the plot, the people are getting kidnapped, and they're getting thrown into this other dimension throughout the TV, and you and your team is able to go into this dimension to kind of fight these different creatures called shadows. And you, as you're progressing, you're stronger, and you're having to rescue these people that are getting thrown on TV. Overall, the interesting part is they managed to achieve something interesting here. You have a calendar. The calendar, as I mentioned before, progresses every day, and there's limited activities that you can do per day. What it happens is this game also introduces this calendar as a way for you to have a limit and a time frame for you to be able to rescue these people. You get maybe about 2 weeks before they die, so they'll tell you, hey, before it rains again, you need to make sure that you rescue this person, otherwise they will die. So there's like this urgency of you having to do things. Not only do you have to manage the school as a young high schooler, but you also have to be able to rescue these people in time, and have to get stronger to be able to fight the boss battles and everything. So there's this sense of urgency urgency, there is this sense of having to do things at a certain time because time is right behind you and time is pushing you to do the next thing. So get stronger, to get faster, to do what you need to do in order for you to be able to progress to the game. This is actually one of the things that I will praise this game a lot for, because I'm kind of I'm a slacker. I'm one of those people that if I don't have a time that I need to do things by, I will forget about it. And this game, even in games, when I'm playing a game, sometimes I have no idea what I'm going. I have no idea what I'm gonna do. And because this game is pushing you to do things at a certain time, you kind of have to know when things have to be done by. And you kind of have to do things right away, or you know, by the time that you remember or whatever, your character will die and the game is over basically. So I really like the calendar, how it affects the dungeon crawling aspect, because it does again pushes that sense of urgency. It does makes you want to continue and finish this game at a certain time, or finish this dungeon by a certain time and everything. It does makes it really natural. It feels like a natural progression of the game, and I really like the way they approach it here. Overall, that's definitely one of the best mechanics in the game. So when you are doing this dungeon crawling, this is a turn-based RPG, and it basically plays like any other RPG in the genre, especially if you play games like Shin Megami Tensei or Persona. It does basically play in that same direction as a turn-based. I don't feel like it does anything particularly interesting or exciting in that end. It is through and through a turn-based RPG. It does focus on things like weakening the enemy, which is again a turn-based RPG aspect that is used on other RPGs as well, like Pokemon or Shin Megami Tensei. It's a really used mechanics that are used in a lot of places here. What I will say is the interesting part is the collection of the personas and collection of fusions. Personas is this other self that they are able to summon. Every character in your party has a persona. So besides having, you know, the character attacks and everything, they also have this other self that they're able to summon. The main character has this unlimited amount of personas that you can get over time, and you basically go through the game not only capturing new personas, obtaining new personas, but also have to fuse them and have to create new ones as you move to get stronger. The game actually doesn't use that mechanic to its full potential. I feel like I still haven't pushed it to its full potential. Here, this is obviously something that is used on other games like Digimon or Pokemon or Shin Megami Tensei, and all of them have a different approach to it. This game doesn't really do much in that aspect. In fact, you get personas all the time. You fight a shadow, and sometimes you get a new card with a new persona, and that gets added to your party, and then you get stronger and everything. This game has an issue, I think, with in that point, because you don't really keep the personas through the entirety of the game. Mostly the game will push you into either to fuse the personas to get stronger, or to kind of just keep them along for a little bit before you have to get new personas and so on. So you never really get attached to the personas in your party. I feel like this game doesn't really use that to its full potential, but again, it's really fun and it does get you through it. The game in difficulty aspect, I will say this is probably either the easiest or one of the easiest JRPGs that I played. With things like Persona 5, I think it will be easier. Persona 5 Royal particularly, but this game doesn't fall in the really difficulty challenge kind of thing. This is more of a game where the whole experience, I don't think that people play these games for the difficulty, but I do think that there is a certain aspect where you enjoy the gameplay, and it's just fun. It's a really fun even if you're not particularly super good at the game, I think you can still get a lot of enjoyment out of it. That being said, there's just so many new changes they did to the UI in this game when it comes to the settings and everything, where you can make it really easy or a little bit harder if you're looking to get more of a challenge. This game definitely allows for a lot of different options. Now we're going to talk about something that I wanted to talk about pertaining to characters. Now, not characters just for each individual character, because that will just take forever, but I do want to talk about characters as a whole, as they're written, as well as how characters perform in Social Link, because I think it's a really interesting mechanic. I feel like this is a really unique experience. I don't think there's a lot of games out there that do it the way that Persona does it. Obviously, there are some examples like Xenoblade Chronicles or even games like Fire Emblem that do have the same kind of mechanic or a similar mechanic to Social Links, but definitely I like the way that Persona does approach character development as far as character within a separate storyline. So the main thing is the Persona characters, main characters at least, do have a storyline that follows through the entirety of the game, and there is a really well written character development through the entirety of the game, which I love and adore. I feel like, personally, the cast in Persona 3 has just such a good charismatic team. All of them work so well together. There's certainly a specific kind of chemistry between these different characters, and as you develop along this relationship or this friendship with them, you definitely get to know more about them, but you also, the story just kind of carries you along. Now, that being said, besides the story itself and besides the plot, their social links as well work along with the storyline to kind of give more depth and more development for the specific characters. This one's a hit or miss for me. I think that definitely having the supplement of the plotline really helps for a lot of these social links. Some of them can be really weak to almost non-existent or almost even boring as at times. For example, Yukiko's social link in some aspects, I particularly never really cared for her social link to the entirety of the game. Sure, she's pretty funny and interesting in the plot line, but when it comes to her social link, I never really found her to be interesting or even one of the characters that I wanted to develop. On the other hand, there's characters like Kanji or Naoto who are really deep on their storylines, and the more you get to know them, the deeper and rich in character development they feel to be, not only in the plot line, but also the way that their individual storylines through social link develop. I think this is a really interesting disconnect between the two. Again, some characters have a lot of character development through storyline, but on the other hand, there are some that have a lot of character development through the social links, which is again a disconnection, because at the end of the day, social links aren't meant to, they're not required. Basically, you can play them at your leisure time, you can play them whenever you want to, they're not required, and this does create this disconnect between the two plots, the plot of the game and the social link plot. Is the game acknowledging the plot line of the social link? That's something that I actually wonder between Persona games, not just Persona 4, but in general. How much does the game acknowledge of your relationship and your friendship with this particular character throughout the entirety of the adventure? In fact, one of my biggest pet peeves in this game is that some of the social links are actually required in order for you to get the special ending, and some of them are actually automatically, like Teddy's, which you actually just get the storyline from his perspective as you're following the storyline. However, you don't get to choose whether you want to hang out with this guy or not. You just, the story just kind of continues. That is kind of, in some kind of aspects, almost lost. I don't even understand why there is a social link for him where his storyline just kind of goes along with actual storyline of the game. Not that I don't want everything, I don't want everybody to have this particular issue, because this is the other issue that I have. One issue is some storylines are too far unrelated to the actual plot line, to the point that they are almost non-existent or not important. On the other hand, Teddy's is just so intricate and close to the game itself that it almost feels like you don't actually get to know Teddy itself, more like his particular story is part of the plot line, and I just don't like that as well. I think that there is a disconnect between the two. I think that this game definitely had an interesting way to do social links much better than Persona 3, who had some issues on its own. However, this game does have some really good written characters. I think that some of the most lovable team just had such a blast with all the different characters, and again, I just feel like the dynamic overall works so well together. There's no other team that I feel like they're really so much friends as this one. I feel like the friendship just feels so unique. So we're gonna move into the last part of this analysis, which is the overall performance of this game. Now, originally this game was released on the PlayStation 2. It was once again ported to the the PlayStation Vita, and then now it's making its way into the PC. So how does this game perform now that it's been in different consoles and it's been out for quite a few years? It doesn't perform as good as you will expect from a PlayStation 2 game that is now on the PC. It actually has some issues when it comes to performance. In fact, the first few weeks when people got the game, they had some issues when it comes to the game crashing, some pop-ins, some of the things that happens on the game is just glitches and that kind of stuff. Now some of the stuff, I believe that Atlas has patched some of this stuff. However, as an original presentation, the game, I don't think the game ever had issues on the PS Vita, so I'm really curious to see why the game performed so badly at first in PC. I'm really curious what went wrong, or what happened in that cycle where it's kind of like, what was the big deal about it? What made it go this way? I'm really curious about it. Overall, the game, again, my PC performed well for the most part, but I did have a lot of crashes, especially towards the middle and the end of the game. That's when the game really started to crash quite a bit. In fact, there was 2 streams where I had the game crash several times to my stream. So here I'm not sure whether, and I don't think it's my computer itself, because again, I play a lot of games in my computer and they're much higher in the in the graphical side of this game. But how does the game look? How does the game sound? How does it feel? This is a really good looking game for a PlayStation 2 game. They were watching these characters in 4K can almost look at Uncanny Valley at time, because they're faces and their expressions look really bizarre, but it's part of the game. Again, it's a PlayStation 2 game, so I didn't went expecting to, you know, see something else, but it looks beautiful when it wants to be beautiful. When it has this beautiful HD animated cutscenes, it's wonderful. I think it's a really good anime game. If you're looking into an anime game, this has really good rendered cutscenes. I like that kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that this game really excels at. Again, when there's a school trip, or when they go to the beach and they have these cutscenes, the animated cutscenes are wonderful. I really like that. The music is a 10 out of 10 for me. Out of the bat, I love everything about the music in this game. I feel like the music is able to match not only so well when it comes to storytelling, but also in the dungeons, where you have unique music for the dungeons and for the boss battles. It does have unique music at times of the day when you do certain activities. It does have a lot of really good music. The music is fantastic. All the music from beginning to end is absolutely phenomenal. This game is a blast. It feels fantastic. If you're a fan of again, RPGs or life simulator games, this is definitely a game for you. This is definitely a good game. If you play Persona 5 Royal and you're still hesitating on playing this game, what are you doing hesitating? Go on, jump into it. I think Persona 4 Golden is a good pickup. It's definitely an encouraged game for me. If you are a fan and you haven't played it yet, definitely. And if you already played it, play it again. Why not? This is a game worth playing again. I think I played this about 7 games, so this is my first time kind of doing a review or formal analysis of the game. Anyway, that is pretty much in this video here. I am not going to give this game a rating. I think if I were to give it it will be in something between a 9 and a 10, maybe like a 9.5 out of 10. I really like this game quite a bit. It does, like I mentioned, does have its own faults, but I definitely see there's a lot of good stuff in this game as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know what is your favorite Persona game. Have you played this game? What do you think about Persona 4 Golden? Thank you so much for watching this, guys. I'll see you guys next time.